get going. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's the first day of our virtual town halls here at the Academy Software Foundation Open Source Days. So we're really excited to share some updates on OpenTimelineIO today. A quick reminder, the virtual town hall is being recorded. So if you can help us out and stay on mute during the town hall. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them into Zoom's Q&A feature, which you may need to click the More button to get to, and then we'll try and get to them at the end. So OpenTimelineIO's technical steering committee is Joshua Miner, Stefan Steinbach, Nick Porcino, Jeff Hodges, Roger Nelson, and myself, Eric Reinecki. Today, we're going to give a quick introduction to OpenTimelineIO. We'll share some updates, and we're also going to welcome Darby Johnston and Reid to show some things that they've been doing with OpenTimelineIO. Let's get started with the overview. Filmmaking is a complex process involving handoff between many different disciplines, departments, and collaborators. Creative decisions made in editorial need to be communicated quickly and clearly to everyone else. Each discipline uses specialized tools, and each of these focuses on specific workflows for specific users. OpenTimelineIO began as an effort to streamline the animation and visual effects filmmaking process. VFX studios tend to have software developers building custom pipeline tools. OpenTimelineIO came from the desire to make a robust, flexible, and reusable toolset for these kinds of pipelines. These benefits can extend to all forms of filmmaking, though. And so OpenTimelineIO aims to facilitate communication by streamlining interchange within and between all parts of the filmmaking process. We see here the timeline view of 20 minutes of Toy Story 4. All these video and audio tracks, thousands of clips, and every splice and transition are built up over years of creative filmmaking decisions. As the film evolves, the producers, writers, and artists working on the film are hungry to know what's changed in the cut, how those changes impact their work in progress, and what new media they need to deliver into editorial to improve the film. OpenTimelineIO is designed to communicate this pipeline in all its complexity throughout the filmmaking pipeline. So what is OpenTimelineIO exactly? As the name implies, it's sort of three things. The open source part is about being by and for software developers. It provides a positive developer experience for technical artists, R&D engineers, and application developers. It's freely available, and anyone in the world can contribute improvements to it if they have great ideas. OTIO's data model deals with all the typical timeline structures seen in video or audio editing application, and all those concepts should feel familiar to editorial timeline users. OTIO's data is saved in an OTIO file, so that's the interchange part or the IO part. Users can import OTIO from many applications. And for applications that don't yet support OTIO, we offer file format conversion plugins for the common ones. OTIO's file format and API have a unified data model with concepts like tracks, clips, transitions, and markers. Most things you might see in audio, video editing applications can be represented in OTIO. An OTIO file does not contain the actual media itself. Instead, it uses media reference URLs, which point to the audio and video media in any format or location. OTIO-Z and OTIO-D bundle an OTIO and reference media into a single package. This makes it possible to keep the timeline and media together for delivery delivery or archival without fear of anything getting lost or unlinked. OTIO's core is written in C++, and it includes language bindings for Python, Swift, C, and Java. This means that the same functionality is supported by all of those languages, and developers can use the languages that best suit their application. File format adapters convert to and from a wide variety of other formats. Since adapters are plugins, the system can be extended to support common formats in use in the industry, as well as custom playlist formats in your workflow. By offering format conversions as a first class part of the OTIO project, we're able to avoid many of the pains that typically arise when a new format is introduced. When all the applications in your pipeline support OTIO, you can be sure your metadata is preserved through any sequence of handoffs between any application. Here we see a mix of applications with support for OTIO natively and some that require file format conversion. We hope to have native OTIO support in all of these in the future. Sample OTIO and OTIO-Z files are available for testing, verification, and presentations, which is incredibly helpful. The ASWF Digital Production Example Library hosts real production data sets under a license, which permits such use, while also balancing some restrictions that satisfy the studio concerns about releasing open content. In the past year, AWS released the source media and timeline for the short film Pichu as both a DaVinci Resolve project and as OTIO and OTIO-Z. And we thank AWS for donating this. It's a great example set. To download these and more, please visit dpel.aswf.io. So there's quite a bit of first-party OTIO support already available from vendors, and more folks are working on getting on board. OTIO is supported in all of these, and you can see that we even have vendors that are currently announced, that have announced and haven't developed yet. So we're really excited for this sort of groundswell of support. New this year, Avid Media Composer 2024.2 added preview support for OpenTimelineIO export. The Avid team have been really great partners in the OTIO community, and we're really excited about them taking the first step and having first-party support. So thank you, Avid. Also, Nuke Studio was among the first apps to ship OTIO support natively, and in Nuke 15.1, they've upped the game with full round-tripping of timelines. Foundry are great partners and are actively working on OTIO contributions to make it more and more powerful for creators. So a big shout out to the Foundry for being ongoing OTIO supporters and leaning into our community. In the past 2 years, vendors seem to have really stepped up to the plate with both participation in the OTIO community and shipping products. Adobe and Autodesk both have representatives on our OTIO Technical Steering Committee, and Avid has been regularly attending these bi-weekly meetings. The perspective and feedback we get from this participation is key in driving OTIO forward. So we want to thank all of these people in our community for making it a collaborative effort. If you want to get involved, we invite you to come to our bi-weekly OpenTimelineIO Technical Steering Committee meetings, which are open to everyone. Please feel free to ask questions on our GitHub forum, and pop into our OTIO Slack channel and say hello. You can find links to all these things at OpenTimeline.io. So let's talk about some updates for 2024. In the past year, we've been working primarily on foundational enhancements to make OTIO more flexible and easier for us to deliver new features. But let's spend a few minutes talking through a couple of the things we've done. As of beta 17, the OpenTimelineIO PyPI package only carries the OTIO core with OTIO JSON and OTIO JSON, OTIO-Z, and the OTIO-D file formats. But don't worry, we're not leaving the adapters behind. The new OpenTimelineIO plugins package still gives you the OpenTimelineIO core, along with the adapter plugins that you're used to, and it has a one-to-one versioning scheme with the OpenTimelineIO core. So if you need all those plugins, you can just pin to OpenTimelineIO plugins for whatever version number you would normally have pinned to OpenTimelineIO. Each of these new adapters has its own GitHub repo under the OpenTimelineIO GitHub org, along with a corresponding PyPI package. This means that they can deliver improvements independent of OTIO core's release cadence. A huge shout out goes to the broader OTIO community. They really swarmed together to get this out the door. These adapters still have support from the OTIO core team, but as in the case of AAF, we've seen domain experts from the community really able to take the lead and drive support in a way quicker than a lot of the core team could. We'll have a little more on that later. This new arrangement also allows a lot more flexibility in how users of OTIO can pick and choose their adapter combinations. For users that enjoyed having the batteries included experience, simply installing the OpenTimelineIO plugins PyPI package gives them the same experience they always had. However, over the years, we found that users want to pick and choose adapter versions independently or even use internal forks with custom modifications. The new setup allows the option to install the public version of OpenTimelineIO and selectively choose the adapter plugins you want from PyPI or your internal sources. You can find more details about these changes in the Beta 17 release notes. Moving on to Raven, last year we introduced it as the successor to OTIO View. It was rewritten from the ground up for performance. You can use it to open an OTIO file and display the structure of the timeline, tracks, clips, etc. You can also click to inspect any of these and look at the details on the right side, including custom metadata. Here we see the Animal Logic A-Lab trailer timeline. You can see that the video track, several mixed down audio tracks, and some of the AAF metadata in the inspector that came along when this was converted from the source AAF out of Media Composer. However, remember, Raven is not a video editing program. It doesn't display the media. It's meant for debugging, inspection, and diagnostics of the OTIO itself. If you want to do some playback, we've listed a few of the many tools that are able to do that. So in the initial Raven release, only AV tracks were included in the UI. This year, in the update this year contributed by tlRender, all the tracks, regardless of their kind, are now included in the viewer. Thanks, Tim, for that extremely useful addition. Also, this year, Josh added a new effects tab in the inspector. Now you can find an effect used in the timeline, click it, and move the playhead to it, which makes it a lot easier to navigate around based on sort of what context you're interested in these timelines. To find out more and install Raven, if you're not already using it, I encourage you to give it a try. Go check out the Raven repo under the OpenTimelineIO GitHub organization. So now let's move on to some of our guest speakers. First, we have Darby Johnson to talk about tlRender.
In this video, I would like to share some updates to tlRender. tlRender is an open source library for rendering timelines. It uses a number of ASWF libraries, including OpenTimelineIO. The timeline user interface features performance improvements, support for OpenColorIO, and dragging and dropping clips. Shown here is a 4K EXR image sequence with the thumbnails and waveforms generated dynamically. OpenColorIO support allows the timeline user interface to match the colors within the viewport. Dragging and dropping clips lets you reorder clips in the timeline. Support for streaming media over the network has been added, allowing the use of HTTP URLs in media references. Currently, only movies are supported, though image sequence support may be added in the future. Experimental support for USD now allows OTIO clips to reference cameras within a USD scene. Shown here is the ALAB trailer with the media references replaced with a USD scene. The clip names match the names of the camera within the scene. OpenGL ES2 rendering has been added to support embedded systems like tablets and SBCs. This allows timelines to be rendered on low-cost devices like this Raspberry Pi 5. The source code for tlRender is available on GitHub. Thanks to the ASC, NASA, and Animalogic for making their footage available for use.
Thank you, Darby. I think seeing OTIO and USD used together like that is among one of the things that we're all really excited about. So everyone, please check out tlRender. It's been impressive year after year. Next, let's move on to Mark Reid, who's going to talk a little bit about what he and others have been doing with the AF adapter.
Hi, my name is Mark Reid, and I work in production technology at Animalogic. I also help maintain the OpenTimelineIO AF adapter. Here's a quick update to what's been happening. First off, the biggest change is the adapter now has its own dedicated GitHub repo. As of OpenTimelineIO 17, all the contrib adapters have been moved into individual repositories. Having the adapter in a separate repo really helps simplify the development process. We no longer need to build all of OTIO to make changes, and we can update and version the plugin independently of the core library. You can install the AF adapter as part of the all batteries included OpenTimelineIO plugins meta package, or you can just install the adapter by itself manually. So new features. Support for exporting user comments has been added. A user comment is metadata associated with a clip that can visually show up in the Avid Media Composer bin. If you have the appropriate metadata in your OTIO file, this should happen automatically now. Another improvement is AF files created with the adapter have better compatibility with DaVinci Resolve. We've also fixed a number of issues with transcribing markers, fixing issues with them being missing completely or in the wrong location. There's been a lot of work happening to improve the AAF writer. AAF files don't have to just contain timeline data. They can also embed audio and video media. We're looking to support this feature with what we call adapter hooks. They are very similar to how media linkers work, but at the adapter level. Writer support is also being worked on for exporting markers and controlling audio panning. I've also been working on a rather large refactor of the AAF reader. This is a pretty comprehensive change meant to address many of the reliability issues with the adapter. Fixing things like start time code being inconsistent, not being able to read certain types of AAF files, and useful metadata being lost or in inconsistent locations. There's a lot to it, so if you'd like to try it out for yourself, please check out PR44. I'm looking for more feedback and testing. And that's all I have for AF adapter updates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I think this sort of showcases a lot of the advantage that we've gotten from splitting these sorts of adapters out. Mark's always been a really strong contributor to OpenTimelineIO, actually both Mark and Tim who worked together on the AF adapter. But I think this move has really helped them focus on that work a little bit more in an unencumbered way. So thank you to both of them for their amazing contributions. So I'd like to pivot now and talk about the future. You know, in the last year or so, we've gotten a lot of these great foundational things solved. And now that we have a strong base to build off of, we're looking forward to some of the new features we'd like to focus on. I think as an industry, we can take a look at OTIO's feature set and the sort of landscape of applications out there and really start to think about what a post-EDL and ALE world might look like. This slider isn't going to move itself, though. We're going to need to work together to really push it over the tipping point. But to do the exciting things we want to do when we're sharing edits, we're going to need to let go of that technical baggage and have an ability to focus on what we really want to do. And looking forward in no particular order, there are a lot of exciting things that we have on the list that we think are key things we'd like to focus on in OTIO. Some of these things are easier, some of them are harder. Each is going to have its own roadmap, and we'll probably deliver in incremental steps along the ways. But what we really want is to hear from all of you about which things you're most excited about and where it would be really helpful for us to focus our energy, both so we can move on from EDL and ALE and also drive really new, compelling workflows that weren't possible before. So again, we invite you to come and attend our biweekly OTIO Technical Steering Committee meetings. Again, anybody's welcome to those. Ask questions in our GitHub discussion forum, hop into our OpenTimelineIO Slack channel. We just love to talk to people about timelines over there. And also, I added in the second instance of the slide that we're participating in ASWF Dev Days. So if you're interested in just doing an early foray into making a contribution to OTIO, I think that'd be a great context to do it. You can see links to all these things at OpenTimelineIO. And lastly, I want to give a big thank you to the entire OTIO community. We're really fortunate in that this is a project that's really truly community driven, and we have the pleasure of working with some of the smartest people in each domain. And we wouldn't be able to do this without all those contributions. So we're really happy to get to be this place where open source shines. So thank you to our entire community of developers, vendors, studios, everybody. So with that, let's transition over to the Q&A portion. Popping it open. Anybody have any questions that they want answered?
Looks like you just did a great job of explaining everything.
Great, perfect. Well, of course, if any questions come up, please feel free, drop into our OTIO Slack channel on ASWF, and we'd love to hear from you all.
Eric, thanks for presenting today, and I just wanted to give an extra +1 to all the thanks for all the contributions that we've seen, especially having all the first party support and Avid and Adobe and Foundry and all of the sort of big names participating has been really, really great. And Darby and Mark, thanks for co-presenting with us today.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, don't forget to check out all the other great open source day presentations coming up. Yeah. See you all later.